The alarm screamed through the command center of the United Earth Federation's main base. Admiral Sarah ran her fingers through her gray hair as she stared at the red warning lights flashing across her control screens. 20 years in space command had taught her to read the signs, and these signs were very bad. "Talk to me," she said to her communications officer. Lieutenant pulled off his headset, his young face pale. "Ma'am, we're getting a distress call from Colony Theta 7. It's not good." Walked over to his station. Theta 7 was a small mining colony on the very edge of human space. 2,000 people lived there, mostly families who worked the asteroid mines. They had no military ships, no weapons, no defenses. They were as peaceful as humans got in the galaxy. "Put it on speaker," ordered. The voice that came through the speakers was shaky with fear. "This is Mining Supervisor Sarah on Colony Theta 7. We need immediate help. Long-range sensors show an invasion fleet heading straight for us. 6 dreadnoughts and at least 30 escort ships. They'll be here in 12 hours. His blood went cold. They were the nightmare of the galaxy. They had conquered dozens of worlds and enslaved entire species. Their technology was far ahead of human tech. Their ships were massive and powerful. Their soldiers were trained killers who showed no mercy. "Estimated time to planetary assault," asked into her microphone. 12 hours, maybe less," came's voice. "Admiral, we have mining equipment and civilian shuttles. That's all. We can't fight them." Looked at her tactical display. The nearest human battle fleet was 3 days away from Theta 7. Even if she ordered them to push their engines to the breaking point, they would never make it in time. 2,000 innocent people were about to face the most dangerous enemy in known space, and there was nothing she could do to help them. Sarah said, using the supervisor's first name, "I'm sending Fleet Commander with everything we have, but you need to know the truth. They won't get there in time." The silence on the other end lasted for long seconds. When spoke again, her voice was steadier. "We understand, Admiral. We'll do what we can." "Is there anywhere you can hide? Deep caves, underground facilities?" "The mining tunnels go pretty deep. We could get the children and elderly down there. But Admiral, if they want this planet, they'll dig us out eventually. You know how they operate." Knew exactly how they operated. They didn't just conquer worlds. They strip-mined them. They took everything of value and left empty rocks floating in space. Any humans they captured would be worked to death in their slave camps. Sarah listened to me carefully, said, "I want you to keep this channel open as long as possible. We'll monitor everything. If there's any chance to help you, any opening at all, we'll take it." "Understood, Admiral, and thank you for trying." Turned to her staff. "Get me Fleet Commander right now. Navigation, plot the fastest possible course to Theta 7. Engineering, I want to know if we can push ships any harder." The next few hours were a blur of activity. Spoke with a tough old naval officer who had fought pirates on the Rim for 15 years. His face was grim when she explained the situation. "Admiral, even if I burn out every engine in the fleet, we'll still be 2 days late," said from his ship's bridge. "Those colonists are dead. We both know it. Just get there as fast as you can, Commander. Maybe we'll find survivors hiding in the tunnels." But knew the truth. They didn't leave survivors. She spent the rest of the day listening to reports from Theta 7. The colonists were working frantically to prepare for the attack. They moved their children and elderly into the deep mining tunnels. The adults gathered what weapons they could find: mining tools, construction equipment, anything that might hurt an enemy soldier. Sarah kept her voice calm as she reported their preparations, but could hear the fear underneath. These were good people, brave people, but they were facing an enemy that had destroyed civilizations far more advanced than a simple mining colony. As the hours passed, found herself hoping for a miracle. Maybe the would pass by. Maybe their sensors were wrong. Maybe this was all a terrible mistake. But she knew better. They never made mistakes about human settlements. If they were coming to Theta 7, they had a reason. The planet's asteroid field was rich in rare metals. The colonists had been mining those metals for 5 years, building up a nice stockpile. They would want those metals for their war machine. With 2 hours until the fleet arrived, made her last call to Theta 7. "Sarah, we're going to lose contact soon," she said. "Is there anything else you need to tell us?" "Admiral, I want you to know something. The people here, they're not giving up. We might not have warships, but we've got something else. We've got each other and we've got our knowledge. We've been mining asteroids for years. We know how to work with dangerous materials. We know how to make things blow up when they need to blow up." Felt a small spark of hope. "What are you planning?" "Nothing that would work against a real military force," said. "But maybe we can make them pay a price for taking our world. Maybe we can slow them down enough for your ships to catch some of them." "Good luck, Sarah. Give them hell." "We will, Admiral." Theta 7 out. The communication channel went dead. Stared at her screens, watching the distant blips that represented the fleet closing in on the helpless colony. In 2 hours, the attack would begin. In 3 days, fleet would arrive to find nothing but ruins and empty space. But something in Sarah's voice stayed with. The mining supervisor had sounded scared, but also determined, almost like she knew something that didn't know. Hope that whatever the colonists were planning, it would at least give the fight to remember. The fleet dropped out of hyperspace exactly when their calculations predicted. Admiral watched the sensor readings from 3 star systems away, her heart sinking with each update. 6 massive dreadnoughts, each one bigger than anything in the human fleet. 32 escort vessels carrying fighters, assault troops, and orbital bombardment platforms. It was enough firepower to level a dozen planets. They didn't waste time with speeches or demands. They simply began their standard attack pattern. First came the message, transmitted on all frequencies in perfect human language. Had heard recordings of similar messages from other conquered worlds. "Humans of Colony Theta 7, you will surrender immediately and prepare for processing. Resistance will result in immediate termination. You have 1 planetary rotation to comply. Any attempt to flee or hide will be met with total destruction. The Empire claims this world and all resources within the system." His communication officer looked up from his station. "Admiral, we're picking up a response from the colony." Sarah's voice came through clearly without a trace of fear. "This is Mining Supervisor Sarah speaking for all residents of Colony Theta 7. We reject your demands. This is our home and we will defend it." Felt her chest tighten. She wanted to scream at the colonists to surrender to save their lives, but she knew it wouldn't matter. They didn't keep human slaves from frontier colonies. They worked conquered populations to death, then brought in their own people. The alien response was immediate. "Your rejection has been noted. Orbital bombardment will commence in 6-time units. Planetary assault will follow. Any survivors will be processed according to protocols." Knew what that meant. There would be no survivors. The bombardment began 3 hours later. Its long-range sensors showed energy discharges lighting up Theta 7's atmosphere like a deadly fireworks display. They were targeting the colony's power stations, communication arrays, and landing platforms. They wanted to cut off any chance of escape before moving in with ground forces. But something was wrong with the sensor readings. Called her sensor technician over. "Martinez, these energy signatures don't make sense. They are using way more firepower than they need for a simple mining colony." Sensor technician Martinez studied the displays, frowning. "You're right, Admiral. These readings show bombardment patterns for a heavily defended military installation, but Theta 7 has no defenses." Stared at the tactical display. Either they were being unusually thorough, or something on Theta 7 was shooting back at them. But that was impossible. The colonists had mining equipment and civilian tools. They couldn't damage ships in orbit. The bombardment continued for 6 hours. When it stopped, tried to contact the colony. Static filled the speakers, broken by occasional fragments of human voices. The communication arrays were damaged but not completely destroyed. Tunnel 7 is secure, moving the families deeper. Power grid is holding in sections 4 through 8. Tell Martinez his modification is working. The fragments didn't make much sense, but one thing was clear. People on Theta 7 were still alive and still talking to each other. That shouldn't be possible after 6 hours of orbital bombardment. 12 hours after the bombing stopped, the ground assault began. Sensors tracked hundreds of assault pods dropping through Theta 7's atmosphere. Each pod carried 20 soldiers in powered armor, armed with plasma weapons and force shields. 2,000 elite troops against 2,000 civilian miners. The first combat reports came through the static-filled communication channel. Landing Zone 7 under attack. They're moving toward the processing center. Secondary team, fall back to tunnel entrance 12. Wait for the signal. Not yet, not yet. Found herself holding her breath. The colonists sounded organized, like they had a plan. But what kind of plan could civilians have against assault troops? The answer came 2 hours later. The first explosion registered on sensors from 3 star systems away, then another, then dozens more. Tactical display lit up with energy signatures across Theta 7's surface. "What the hell?" Martinez said, staring at his readings. "Admiral, those aren't weapons. Those are industrial explosions, big ones." Leaned over his shoulder. The explosion patterns were centered on the mining facilities, but they were far too large for simple demolition charges. It looked like entire sections of the asteroid mining operation were going up in massive fireballs. Picked up a transmission from the planet. Sarah's voice came through, barely audible through the static. Phase 1 complete. Moving to Phase 2. All teams, remember your training. These rocks have been good to us. Time to return the favor. Shook her head. Training? What training? They're miners, not soldiers. But the explosions continued throughout the day. Every few hours, sensors detected another massive detonation somewhere on Theta 7. The energy signatures were getting bigger, not smaller. Most puzzling of all, the fleet in orbit wasn't responding normally. Would have expected them to increase their bombardment, to call in reinforcements, to do something. Instead, they seemed to be holding position, as if waiting for something. On the second day of the ground assault, something changed. The ships began moving in erratic patterns. Some of them stopped responding to hails from their command vessels. Long-range sensors picked up what looked like internal explosions on 2 of the escort ships. "Martinez, are the ships fighting each other?" asked. Martinez shook his head. "No, Admiral. The explosion patterns don't match ship-to-ship combat. It's like their systems are failing. Power grid collapses, life support failures, that kind of thing." Studied the readings more carefully. Ship after ship in the fleet was going dark. Not destroyed by weapons fire, but simply shutting down, like someone was turning off switches one by one. Meanwhile, the ground fighting on Theta 7 continued. But the combat reports didn't sound like a desperate last stand. They sounded like a coordinated operation. "Sector 9 is clear. Move the equipment to position." Their armor is breaking down faster than expected. Tells team they are working perfectly. Had never heard of civilian miners using nanotechnology. By the end of the second day, half the fleet was drifting dead in space. The other half was sending increasingly desperate messages to their home fleet, requesting immediate evacuation. Realized she was witnessing something impossible. A frontier mining colony was not just fighting back against the galaxy's most powerful military force. They were winning. But how, and what were doing in an asteroid mining operation? She was about to find out. The silence from Theta 7 lasted exactly 37 hours and 14 minutes. Admiral counted every second. It started during the middle of the third day of fighting. One moment, her communication officer was picking up fragments of conversation from the planet. The next moment, nothing but empty static filled the speakers. "Boost the signal. Try all frequencies," ordered. Worked his controls frantically. "I'm trying, Admiral. All communication arrays on Theta 7 have gone silent. Even the automated emergency beacons are offline." Stared at the tactical display. Her long-range sensors still showed the fleet in orbit around the planet, but more than half the ships were now dead hulks drifting in space. The remaining vessels seemed to be pulling back from the planet, moving to a higher orbit. "What's the status of our reinforcement fleet?" she asked. Navigation officer checked her display. "Fleet commander reports 18 hours out, Admiral. He's pushing his engines past safety limits, but that's the best he can do." Nodded grimly. 18 more hours of silence. 18 more hours of not knowing what had happened to 2,000 innocent people. She had been in Space Command long enough to know what silence usually meant after a planetary assault. It meant the fighting was over. It meant the defenders were dead. But the sensor readings from Theta 7 didn't match any battle she had ever studied. The fleet should have been celebrating their victory. They should have been calling in cargo ships to strip the planet's resources. Instead, they seemed to be retreating. "Martinez, give me a detailed sensor sweep of the fleet," said. The sensor technician worked quietly for several minutes before looking up with confusion. "Admiral, this doesn't make sense. 15 of the ships are completely dead. No power, no life signs, no movement. They're just floating in space like empty metal boxes." "What about the others?" "The remaining ships are showing massive system failures. Power grids operating at 20%, life support failing, weapon systems offline. It's like their entire fleet is falling apart." Walked over to study the sensor data herself. In 20 years of military service, she had never seen anything like this. They had the most advanced technology in the galaxy. Their ships were built to last for centuries. They didn't just break down during routine operations. Could it be some kind of human weapon we don't know about? She wondered aloud. Martinez shook his head. "No, Admiral. I've analyzed the energy signatures from all the explosions on the planet. They match mining equipment, industrial processes, chemical reactions. Nothing that could reach ships in orbit." The hours crawled by. Found herself packing the command center, checking and rechecking the sensor readings. The situation made no sense. A civilian mining colony had somehow defeated the most powerful military force in known space, and then vanished into radio silence. Finally, Fleet Commander's voice crackled through the long-range communicators. "Admiral, this is. We're dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the Theta 7 system, preparing for combat operations." Leaned over her microphone. "Commander, be careful. The sensor readings from that system don't match anything in our tactical databases. The fleet appears to be disabled, but we don't know why." "Understood, Admiral. We're moving in slowly, weapons ready." For the next 2 hours, listened to's reports as his fleet approached Theta 7. What they found every rule of space warfare. "Admiral, you need to hear this." His voice was tight with disbelief. "The entire fleet is dead. All 38 ships. No power, no life signs, no response to our hails. They're just floating here like a graveyard." "Any sign of battle damage?" "That's the strange part. No external damage at all. No blast marks, no hull breaches, nothing. It's like every ship just stopped working." Felt a chill run down her spine. "What about the planet?" "We're detecting human life signs on the surface. Lots of them. The colonists appear to be alive." Relief flooded through. Whatever had happened at Theta 7, the people were still alive. "Can you establish communication?" "Working on it now. The planet's communication arrays are damaged but not destroyed. We should be able to—" "Wait, I'm getting something." Static filled the speakers for several long minutes. Then a familiar voice came through clearly. "Fleet Commander, this is Mining Supervisor Sarah. Welcome to Theta 7. Grabbed her microphone. "Sarah, this is Admiral. Are you all right? What happened out there?" His voice carried a note of exhaustion, but also something else. Pride, maybe, or satisfaction. "We're all fine, Admiral. A few injuries, nothing serious. As for what happened, well, it's a long story. Why don't you send down a landing party? I think you're going to want to see this for yourself." His voice cut in. "Admiral, I'm reading massive ground forces on the planet's surface. At least 2,000 troops in powered armor." "Are they threatening the colonists?" asked quickly. "No, ma'am, they're all dead. Every single one of them." Sank into her chair. 2,000 elite troops dead, 38 warships dead, and 2,000 human civilians very much alive. "Commander, I want you to send boarding parties to examine those ships. Full protocols. I want to know what killed them." "Already on it, Admiral. I'll have preliminary reports within the hour." Turned to her communications officer. "Open a secure channel to Sarah. I want to talk to her privately." When the connection was established, spoke quietly into her headset. "Sarah, I need you to tell me the truth. What really happened down there?" Was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was careful. "Admiral, how much do you know about asteroid mining operations?" Frowned. That wasn't the answer she had expected. "Very little. It's specialized work." "It is. Very specialized. We use a lot of advanced technology that most people don't think about. Nanotechnology, molecular processing, automated systems. Things that can break down rock at the atomic level and sort out the valuable metals." "I still don't understand." "They made a mistake, Admiral. They assumed we were just simple miners with simple tools. They didn't realize that our simple tools could be very dangerous in the right hands." Felt pieces of a puzzle clicking into place. "What did you do, Sarah?" "We did what miners do, Admiral. We processed ore. It's just that this time the ore was wearing armor and flying in ships." The full implications hit like a physical blow. The industrial explosions, the systematic failure of technology. The colonists hadn't fought them with weapons. They had fought them with mining equipment, and they had won. "My God," whispered, "you turned their own technology against them." "Like I said, Admiral, it's a long story. Why don't you come down and let us explain it properly? I think you're going to want to include this in your report to Earth Command." Was already standing up, reaching for her jacket. Whatever had happened on Theta 7, it was going to change everything humanity thought they knew about warfare. "I'll be there in 6 hours, Sarah, and Sarah." "Yes, Admiral. Remind me never to underestimate miners again." His laughter carried clearly through the static. "I'll be sure to do that, ma'am." Admiral's shuttle touched down on Theta 7 6 hours later. As she stepped out onto the landing platform, she could see the signs of battle everywhere. Blast marks on buildings, damaged equipment and debris scattered across the mining facility. But the damage looked wrong somehow. Sarah was waiting for her, along with a small group of colonists. They looked tired but unharmed. More importantly, they looked calm. These weren't people who had just survived a desperate last stand against impossible odds. They looked like people who had completed a difficult job. "Admiral," said, extending her hand. "Welcome to Theta 7. I'm sorry about the mess, but we had unexpected visitors." Shook hands with the mining supervisor. Up close, she could see that was younger than her voice suggested, maybe 40 years old with graying hair and calloused hands. A working supervisor, not just an administrator. "Sarah, I need to understand what happened here. My fleet commander reports that every soldier on this planet is dead, and I've got 38 dead warships in orbit. How is that possible?" Smiled tiredly. "Let me show you, but first there's something you need to see." She led toward the main mining complex. Along the way, they passed several soldiers lying motionless in their powered armor. knelt beside one of them and activated her scanner. No external injuries, she reported. No blast damage to the armor. What killed them? Their own equipment, said Dr. James Martinez, one of the colonists. He was a thin man with engineer's goggles pushed up on his forehead. The armor's life support systems failed. The power cells went dead. The air recyclers stopped working. One by one, their suits just stopped being suits and became metal coffins. Stood up, frowning. Armor doesn't fail. It's the most advanced personal protection system in the galaxy. It was, Martinez agreed, but it wasn't designed to resist what we did to it. They continued walking toward the mining complex. Saw more dead troops, all of them apparently killed by equipment failure rather than weapons fire. It was eerie and disturbing. Admiral said as they reached the main building, "How much do you know about nanotechnology?" "Basic principles. Microscopic machines that can manipulate matter at the molecular level. Earth uses some for medical applications and materials research. Asteroid mining uses them too," explained. "We call them processing bots. They're designed to identify specific materials and break them down for extraction. They can work their way through tons of rock to find tiny amounts of rare metals." They entered the main control room, where several colonists were working at computer terminals. The screens showed complex molecular diagrams and what looked like engineering schematics. Studied the displays. "Those look like technology specifications." "They are," said Martinez. "We've been analyzing equipment for 3 days. Their armor, their weapons, their ship components. Very impressive technology." "How did you get access to their specifications?" Exchanged a look with Martinez. "We didn't. We reverse engineered them. They did most of the work." Was starting to understand, but the implications were staggering. "You sent against the soldiers." "Not against them," Martinez corrected. "Into their equipment. The thought the advanced alloys were just another type of ore to be processed. They went to work breaking down the molecular structures, sorting out the valuable materials from the waste products." Stared at the displays, her mind racing. "But work slowly. It would take days or weeks to break down something as complex as armor." "Usually, yes," said, "but we made some modifications to increase their efficiency, and we used a lot of them, hundreds of millions of all working together." "How did you deliver them? That would have detected any kind of missile or projectile system." Martinez grinned. "We didn't deliver them. We released them into the atmosphere during the orbital bombardment. The bombing actually helped spread them around the planet." Felt a chill of understanding. "The explosions, the industrial detonations we detected, you were releasing into the air." "Among other things," confirmed. "We also destroyed our rare metal stockpiles, 3 years' worth of processed platinum, iridium, and other heavy elements, millions of tiny particles scattered into the atmosphere." "I don't understand. Why would you destroy your own resources?" Martinez pulled up another display. "Because those particles acted as bait. They are programmed to seek out specific molecular signatures. When they detected the valuable metals in the equipment, they locked onto those signatures and went to work." Studied the technical readouts. The elegance of the solution was breathtaking and terrifying at the same time. "You turned their superior technology into a weakness." "Exactly," said. "The more advanced their equipment, the more valuable materials it contained, the more they wanted to process it." "What about the ships in orbit? How did they reach them?" "The soldiers carried them up there," Martinez explained. "Every time a transport shuttle went from the planet to the fleet, it carried millions in the air recycling systems. Within hours, the entire fleet was contaminated." Walked over to the main display, which showed a 3-dimensional model of the Theta 7 system. Red dots marked the positions of dead ships. "How long did it take?" she asked. 72 hours from initial release to complete system failure," said. "We had to be patient. The needed time to spread and multiply. We had to keep them busy while they worked. That's why you kept fighting, to buy time. And to make sure they didn't retreat before they finished their work, Martinez added. If they had pulled back to a safe distance, they might have figured out what was happening and found a way to stop it. Shook her head in amazement. 2,000 civilians defeated the most powerful military force in the galaxy using mining equipment. We prefer to think of it as advanced materials processing, said with a slight smile. They brought us some very interesting materials to process. A communication alert sounded from the control room speakers. Commander's voice came through clearly. Admiral, please respond. We've completed our examination of the fleet. Activated her communicator. Go ahead, Commander. Ma'am, you're not going to believe this. Every ship has been completely gutted from the inside. Power systems, life support, weapons, everything. It's like they were eaten away by some kind of molecular acid. Looked at who nodded. Not acid, Commander. Industrial designed for asteroid mining. The silence on the other end of the communication lasted for several seconds. Admiral, are you saying that miners defeated the entire invasion fleet with mining equipment? Looked around the control room at the tired but proud faces of the colonists. These people had just accomplished something that military strategists would have called impossible. That's exactly what I'm saying, Commander. And I think we need to have a very long conversation with Earth Command about updating our military doctrines. Understood, Admiral. Should I begin salvage operations on the ships? Looked at who shrugged. They're full of very valuable materials, Admiral. It would be a shame to waste them. Begin salvage operations, Commander. And yes, ma'am. Make sure your boarding parties wear full environmental suits. We want to make sure all they are safely contained before we start moving those ships. Copy that, Admiral. Turned back to and Martinez. I suppose you'll want to process those ships the same way you processed everything else. Grinned, Admiral, we're miners, it's what we do. 3 days later, Admiral sat in the mining complex's main conference room, reviewing the final reports. The scope of what the colonists had accomplished was still hard to believe. Let me make sure I understand this correctly, she said to the assembled group of miners and engineers. You took industrial nanotechnology designed for asteroid mining, modified it to target alien technology, and released it into the atmosphere during an orbital bombardment. Sarah nodded. That's the basic idea, yes. And the spread through the ground forces, then traveled to their fleet through normal atmospheric exchange in their transport shuttles. Dr. Martinez leaned forward. They are programmed to replicate when they find suitable materials. Each soldier's armor contained enough processed metals to create thousands of new. The more equipment they brought, the faster the. Looked at her data pad. According to your calculations, they completely broke down the molecular structure of technology in just under 3 days. 71 hours and 36 minutes to be precise, said Engineer Williams, a young woman who had helped design the modification protocols. We tracked the process through sensor readings and equipment failures. Shook her head in amazement. And during that entire time, they never realized what was happening. Why would they? Asked. From their perspective, they were conducting a standard planetary assault. Their equipment started failing, but equipment sometimes fails during combat operations. By the time they realized it was systematic, it was too late to stop. What about their sensors? Couldn't they detect the? Martinez pulled up a holographic display. Are designed to avoid detection. They're smaller than most sensor resolution limits, and they mimic the molecular signature of space dust when they're not actively processing materials. Studied the technical specifications. The elegance of the solution was remarkable, but the implications were staggering. Do you realize what you've done? She asked. You've created a weapon that can defeat any technological civilization. No matter how advanced their equipment, these can break it down. The room fell silent, finally spoke carefully. Admiral, we didn't create a weapon. We used tools that we already had for their intended purpose. They are designed to process materials. That's exactly what they did. But the military applications are obvious, Williams interrupted. But so are the defensive applications. Any human colony can use this technology to protect itself against technological invasion. Consider this. They had been the galaxy's dominant military power because their technology was superior to everyone else's. But what happened when superior technology became a liability instead of an advantage? Have you thought about what happens when other species learn about this? Asked. Martinez nodded grimly. We've thought about it a lot over the past 3 days. Most species in the galaxy rely heavily on advanced technology for their military power. If they know that humans can neutralize that advantage, they'll either avoid us completely or try to destroy us before we can spread the technology. Finished. Stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see the salvage teams working on the equipment. Human engineers were studying alien technology, learning from it, figuring out how to improve their own systems. There's something else, she said, something that bothers me about this whole situation. The colonists waited for her to continue. They are the most successful military force in known space. They've conquered dozens of civilizations. They've studied human technology, human tactics, human psychology, but they completely misunderstood what they were facing here. Raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? They prepared to fight soldiers. They brought equipment designed to overwhelm military defenses and break organized resistance. But you're not soldiers. You're engineers and miners and problem solvers. Turn back to face the group. Every other species they've conquered probably tried to fight them with weapons and warships. You fought them with tools and ingenuity. Williams smiled. My grandfather used to say that if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. But if you're an engineer, every problem looks like an engineering challenge. And this was an engineering challenge. Definitely, Martinez said. How do you neutralize a technologically superior force using only the resources available to a civilian mining operation? It's actually a fascinating problem when you think about it. Laughed despite herself. Only humans would think of an alien invasion as a fascinating engineering problem. That's not fair, protested. I'm sure other species would have found creative solutions too. Shook her head. I've studied the reports from other conquests. Every civilization they attacked tried to match their technology with better technology. Bigger weapons, stronger shields, faster ships. The humans at Theta 7 are the first to ask a different question. What question? Williams asked. Not how do we build better weapons, but how do we make their weapons stop working entirely? The room was quiet for a moment as the implications sank in. Admiral said slowly, what are you going to tell Earth Command about all this? Looked at her data pad, which contained enough technical specifications to revolutionize human military doctrine. I'm going to tell them the truth, that a small mining colony just changed the balance of power in the galaxy, that human civilian technology is apparently more dangerous than anyone realized, and that we need to start thinking about warfare in completely different ways. She paused, considering her words carefully. I'm also going to recommend that Earth Command establish a new military doctrine based on what happened here. Not building bigger weapons, but learning to turn our enemies' weapons against them. Martinez nodded thoughtfully. They spent centuries perfecting their technology to fight conventional wars. They never considered the possibility that their technology itself could become their weakness. And now every species in the galaxy is going to have to reconsider what it means to have advanced technology, said. Is it really an advantage if your enemies can turn it against you? closed her data pad and stood up. Ladies, I think you've just started a revolution in military thinking. The question is, what happens next? Williams grinned. We go back to mining asteroids, Admiral. We've got a quota to meet, and all this excitement has put us behind schedule. Stared at her for a moment, then started laughing. You defeat the galaxy's most powerful military force, and you're worried about missing your mining quotas. Well, said seriously, the galaxy still needs rare metals. Just because we solved one problem doesn't mean we can ignore our responsibilities. As walked back to her shuttle, she reflected on what she had learned at Theta 7. The colonists hadn't won because they were better fighters or because they had superior weapons. They had won because they approached the problem differently than anyone expected. They had prepared to fight human soldiers. Instead, they found human engineers. And that, Admiral realized, had made all the difference in the galaxy. Her final report to Earth Command would be brief and to the point. When the reinforcements arrived, all the foes were dead. But the real victory wasn't in the fighting. It was in the thinking. The miners of Theta 7 had proven something important about humanity. When faced with impossible odds, humans didn't just fight harder. They fought smarter. And sometimes that was enough to change everything.